I don't think that that's the best way to invest. That's not the best way to build wealth. You want to build portfolios of quality companies where some things go up, some things go down, but overall, as the economy grows, your wealth grows. That's the safest long-term way to invest. I don't follow any particular analysts, Barbara. I look at them all. I look at, if they say JP Morgan Chase has an argument as to why a stock's going to go up, then I'll read it. If they say Goldman Sachs has a different argument and thinks that it's going to go down, I'll read that too. I want to hear what everybody says. And then at the end of the day, where I pick a stock, it comes down to, where do I want to be? What do I believe in? It's like if you were to look at the Super Bowl and you have two evenly matched teams and you're trying to decide which team you're going to cheer for or which team you're going to bet on, sometimes you can never really be right because you don't have a time machine, because you may have two teams where on a given Sunday, one team would win. On another type of day, the other team would win. So it's not about necessarily being able to be right. It's about sort of having an assessment that allows you to understand what risk you want to be exposed to and where you want to be in case certain things happen. So, for example, I talked to you guys about copper. I'm a heavy investor in copper. And I'm doing that because I believe that the demand for copper is going to go up. I believe it's going to become more scarce. It's hard to build, and open and operate these copper mines. I think that as time goes on, is going to be an industry of growth. That's why I'm invested in copper. I'm not investing in it because I know that COPX, which is what I invest in. That's the ETF, COPX. I don't know what COPX is going to do next week. I don't even care. I just know that if you ask me, what am I invested in? I'm invested in copper. So think about when you picked a career. A lot of you have a career, right? A lot of you went to college or something and you majored in something and then you picked a career. That was just your career. You just picked it. You don't know what the future holds necessarily. You kind of do. You know that this pays well and there's job opportunities there, but you don't know what that career is going to be like 5 or 10 years from now. So you're invested. If you're a nurse, you're invested in nursing. If you are an engineer, you're invested in engineering. If you picked a spouse, a wife, or a husband, you're invested in that person, just like they're a stock. And sometimes it's going to have a good year, sometimes it's going to have a bad year, but that's where you chose to allocate your resources. If you own a vineyard, you're invested in vineyards, right? So being invested in something isn't necessarily a magical thing. I think sometimes though, what happens is that you don't pick things that you may not pick industries that are just terrible industries or where you expect bad things to happen, or you may be in an industry for a while and then you realize that that's not the place for you. So maybe you reallocate some part of your portfolio, just like a bad marriage. I've been married to this lady for 5 years, and the first 3 years were good. The last 2 years were terrible. I got to get out. So I think I'm going to reallocate my portfolio. Instead of investing money, I'm investing something more valuable than money. I'm investing my time and my peace, my inner peace, and I'm going to invest that in a new person. All right. So that's kind of the way to think about investing. You cannot really typically invest with a crystal ball, and there's no investor in the world that goes through life and never loses money. If you're a standard investor, typically you're gonna have your drought seasons and you're gonna have your booms and your busts. And it's the booms and the busts that cause people to be scared to invest, because the thing about the other route where you don't invest at all and you just get your paycheck and you just spend it until you need another one, that route is smoother because you're going to get the same amount every week, but you're kind of like dealing with this consistent level of mediocrity. Whereas with investing, you've got opportunities to see your wealth grow, and to see it grow in a way that's really efficient without you having to go to work until you die, or also in a way that tends to exceed the rate of inflation. Like when I showed you all that chart and I showed you how much the market has gone up since the pandemic, well, that asset inflation was higher than regular inflation. So even as inflation was 7, 8%, the people that were getting hammered the most by that high inflation were not the stock market investors, because the stock market investors, they said, yeah, the price of carrots is going up at the grocery store, but my Nvidia stock shot up 10x, in the last year or whatever, right? So they've got a balancing factor. So the question that I want to ask you, and this is the last thing I'm going to say on this point, and I'll get back to your questions, is, do you have balance? What is your balancing factor? This is the reason why you don't want to just be a person that goes to work and gets your paycheck and lives off your paycheck, because your boss is not balancing out inflation for you. They're not giving you raises that keep up with inflation. The studies all show that. So what's your balancing factor? Well, investing becomes a balancer that lets you keep up with a changing society. So if you're sitting on the sidelines and you're just scared, I don't want that for you, because you're really watching the world run by you. And I don't want you to get left behind in that way. So you got to participate on some level, in my opinion. Every person that's smart should be in the stock market consistently and assertively on some level, where you are just as invested in the stock market as you are invested in buying the iPhone or paying the rent or paying the car note. It should be at that level. It shouldn't just be $2 here, $20 there. No, this is something that it has to be a fundamental and critically important part of your life. I'm done. Thank you for listening. All right. And if you haven't started investing, we're going to do something next week. I'm going to do a live event called How to Invest in the Stock Market. It's pretty straightforward. So I'm literally going to walk you through the process. For those of you that still aren't sure, I'll let you guys know when that's ready. It's going to be, I'll tell you in a couple of days about it. Secondly, if you're eager to start something today, I did do a Black Stock Market weekend that anybody can access. If you go to thedrboycemethod.com, THE, thedrboycemethod.com,